Today we're going to be talking about The Forgotten 500 by Gregory A. Freeman. Every once in a while, you stumble across a story that grips your emotions and leaves you wondering how these events could possibly ever happen. This book, The Forgotten 500, describes a daring World War II rescue to save hundreds of downed flyers in dangerous enemy territory in Yugoslavia. This was really a breathtaking story of unsung heroes told in riveting and priceless detail, those who went above and beyond. And to me, it reminds me of there are actually heroes who still live among us. So a little bit of the background, during a bombing campaign over Romanian oil fields, hundreds of American airmen were shot down in Nazi-occupied Yugoslavia. Local Serbian farmers and peasants risked their own lives to give refuge to the soldiers while they waited for rescue. And in 1944, Operation Halyard was born. So the risks were incredible. The Americans were starving in Yugoslavia. They had to build a landing strip large enough for C-47 cargo planes without tools, without alerting the Germans, and without endangering the local villagers. The cargo planes had to make it through enemy airspace and back without getting shot down themselves. This true story has been classified for over 50 years for political reasons. And the full account of this unforgettable story of loyalty, self-sacrifice, and bravery is now finally being told for the first time. The Forgotten 500 is really the gripping, behind-the-scenes look at one of the greatest escapes ever in World War II. Again, throughout the late days of the war, hundreds, maybe even thousands of Allied airmen had bailed out or crash-landed into the German-occupied Yugoslavia countryside. The civilians were at risk of torture or death if they were caught aiding the airmen at all. So, as the war neared its end, the Soviets, under the leadership of General Tito, taking control over Eastern Europe. Now, Churchill's staff, British intelligence, and the Foreign Service were infiltrated at this time by communist agents. So Stalin had hatched a plan to discredit General Mihailovich. Pardon me if I butcher his last name. He was the World War II Yugoslav Serb leader, and he commanded the Chetnik freedom fighters. So if the general could be eliminated, the Soviets could assert their control over Yugoslavia. But during this time, there were hundreds of wounded and near-starving Allied airmen under the protection and care of General Mihailovich. The Soviets, in their nefarious plot, accused the general of being a Nazi collaborator and that he was denying the Allied airmen food. The reality was there was no food available for anyone at that time. Also, that the general was turning the Allies over to the Germans so that they could be tortured and killed for information or brutality. So this really created a problem for the Allied governments. Once they got the message and they decoded it, especially with the general delivering downed Allied airmen to the Germans, that's a big problem. So this book really goes into a deep detail about the attempted betrayals of British intelligence, how they tried to sabotage the effort, how the U.S. responded, and the actions it took to get the downed airmen out. There's a lot of political behind-the-scenes movement between Churchill and Roosevelt and the OSS and British intelligence, and it's really deep and dark and disturbing in a lot of ways. This terrific book is an essential part of American history and another amazing true story that describes the hardships of war. I'm not an expert in this area of the world. I do feel that after reading this book, I have a better understanding and appreciation for the Croats who sacrificed all to save our flyers at an incredible danger to themselves. This book is really a great story, and the admirable effort to create an engaging novel-style read, especially taking a lot of this dense material. In a critique, the historical research sometimes seemed rather light, and way too much, in my opinion, was invested in quotes or single style anecdotes as opposed to more dependence on primary sources. This, in my opinion, also hurt the author's credibility by giving an impression of too little background and just trying to, at times, stretch the book into a respectable length. It was inevitable that there'd be a lack of firsthand evidence since the story was uncovered during the passing of the entire World War II generation. And then you add in the dissolution of the OSS, the Cold War paranoia, and mission secrecy. I mean, it must have made gathering primary source information for this a Herculean task at best. I am grateful that this book was published so that the world will know the demoralizing truth about, again, how powerful men sold out and betrayed each other due to personal favoritism, poor judgment, and chaotic decisions that directly affected Allied airmen trapped behind enemy lines. An interesting side fact here, after reading this book and discussing it with my readers group, pilot who just celebrated his 101st birthday, he actually flew one of the missions, reached out and introduced himself via email. It was really incredible to talk to him about some of the facts written in this book, especially with someone who was there. And he had a great point, and I agree with him 100% that this book really poses the question to our youngest generation that they still fail to comprehend, and will we ever learn? Anyway, my rating on this one is a 5 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I think there's a reason it's so popular right now. It's just an excellent, fascinating book that was well read. So congratulations, and I recommend picking it up. Again, my name's Griffin from legendsofhistory.org. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for listening.